Oh, hi, Unreal Fest. Welcome to the Women in Games panel. My name is Tabitha Graves. I'm on the Epic Games Unreal Engine business development team. Originally, when I wrote the opening remarks for this session, it was very lighthearted. I had a Taylor Swift joke or two. It was a little jovial. And then earlier this week, after our tech checks, the women on stage and I went out to lunch, and the conversation was electric. It was at times vulnerable, and I thought very important. It would be incredibly disingenuous of me to open the tone of the session to be anything but a pressing need to continue to move forward in our industry. As the topics of mentorship and support are brought up, I would love for you all to reflect on your own personal experiences and think about how we can support each other and other women as we are going through being in the games industry. So to all women on the stage, in the audience, on Twitch and YouTube, thank you so much. We hear you. Also to all of our allies, we thank you. It is not a time to be complacent, but to keep on being loud. And with that, it is my honor to introduce our panel. Oh, I am also incredibly grateful to Epic for giving us the stage and the platform to share our stories. So thank you so much. And our panelist, I have Jen O'Neill, who is CEO and head chef of Magic Soup Games. We have Tina Hernandez, who is CEO and production director of Sword and Wand, and Grace Joe, who is founder of Next Gen Gaming Club and director of corporate development at Scopely. So as we begin, I would love to hear from each of you about a mentor that you have had in your past who has helped either shape your style of leadership or somebody who has shaped your career today. And how did that person get identified in your life? We'll start with Jen.
I'll go first, sure. I've had the good fortune of having a lot of good mentors in my life, mainly bosses that I've worked with in the past who showed me the way to good leadership. But coming up in the industry, there weren't a lot of women. And when I was kind of in the middle of my career, I had some bosses who recognized that I could use some coaching, and they brought on a woman to work with me who was an executive in another industry. And, I wouldn't downplay somebody who's in another industry and say, well, you can't get what you need there. Sure, she doesn't know the inner workings of the video game business, but the needs of people, the human experience, no matter where you go, is largely the same. People have their hierarchy of needs, and if you as a leader understand that, there's a lot that you can share. And she was great. I think at the time that I was working with her, I was very achiever-oriented, and she taught me to, really look at the benefits of being more of a servant leader and for caring more for my team first as a way to success. So I'm really grateful to her for that.
It's amazing. Yeah. Tina?
I'm really fortunate that one of my early mentors is here on the stage. So Jen was our publishing producer when I was on Guitar Hero at Neversoft and Tony Hawk at Neversoft. And so I was able to see her in action really early in my career when I was sort of starting out in production. But I've been really fortunate to have a lot of leaders in general from underprivileged or underrepresented groups in games. So not just, great female leaders, but also great POC and LGBTQ leaders who have been able to work with. One of the key mentors, I think, for me in my more recent part of my career was Lauren McWilliams, who passed away last year, but she had been an original designer on things like Full Spectrum Warrior and things like, had worked on Mist and Riven in the early days and had kind of been an OG. Identifying people in particular who are happy to come and do panels like these. Like she was always very open to doing keynote speaker events at GDC. When you have the opportunity to work with those folks who are open and excited to share their experiences, it's very easy to open up the door of communication with them. And so, I'm really excited to be in that sort of sometimes I say that the first round of people were trotting through the wilderness and like pulling out trees and making a general path. And then sort of my round of folks, we were kind of laying some bricks and trying to get some pathway down. And then hopefully for the folks that are coming after us, it's a much easier road.
Grace?
Yeah, for me, I think I feel the same way, that early in my career, I didn't have many female leaders or role models to look up to. So at the time, I had a lot of male mentors. And at the time when I listened to them, a lot of great, valuable experience. But then what I did in a lot of ways was like, I unintentionally acted like a man when I did my business. And I remember it really, how I did was that I started dressing down, even though I really always loved fashion. I started wearing more swag t-shirts. And then just because people would joke about my outfits, people would be like, are you going on a date? Are you going to do this and do that? And until I met this awesome female leader at an event. And then she came in with a very colorful, dramatic pattern blazer. And then I shared my story with her. And then she gave me this pep talk. She said, there's simply not that many of us out there. So instead of being small, hiding in the corner, and then trying not to stand out because of not because of your capability, but because of other reasons, she actually taught me, anyways, if we can stand out, just go there. And then we should encourage each other. We should support each other. We should just be us. And it shouldn't be like, oh, what is the ways are normally done in the industry? Because this is a very male-dominant industry. So a lot of times when you just try to be like others, it might be just not authentic to you. Right. So that's the advice I'm giving to a lot of my team members, people who are more junior in their career, is that, hey, be yourself. And then try to find people who are like you, share experience, and then you're gonna get more support along your journey.
Thank you all for sharing. Yeah. As we go through some of the topics, we're gonna look at a career in games. We broke it up into 3 categories. Early start in the career. We're actually gonna focus a lot on mid-game part of your career, and then the leadership mentorship part. So starting in the early days, recently in the Hello Hayes podcast, she talked about an interaction that she had where she was being very self-deprecating about a personal achievement that she was actually really proud about. The advice from the person that she was speaking to was to always stop and take time to celebrate the small wins, because otherwise you may never be celebrating. I think as women, we often recategorize our wins as small. And then a lot of people have imposter syndrome, and then our definitions and levels of success and achievement are different. So unless we really stop, there will never be celebration. And we should absolutely be celebrating right now, lifting each other up daily, and celebrating at every opportunity. So Jen, we'll start with you. The question is, what is a small win that you've either had recently or earlier in your career, and how did you choose to celebrate those victories?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that, because when I was early in my career, I was very much like that. If I had a small win, I didn't even acknowledge it. I would just, okay, well, what's the next thing? I don't even know if I identified it as a win. It's like, okay, what's next? What do we need to do next? But now, I get a lot of joy in sharing the wins, with my team. I run a small startup, and a win for me is we made a new hire and they decided to join us, and I'm excited about that. So I announce it on Slack. We're fully remote. That's how we talk to each other. So the party parrot comes up and the clapping frog, and I do a little happy dance. And I think for me now, it's simple things. It's a nice dinner with family and cheesecake, turning into a golden girl.
The best.
Cheesecake,
Yeah, I think, when I look back at the earlier part of my career, I was tagged as sort of a person who would never say no. I would just, even on Tony Hawk, guitar, and going into Guitar Hero, the reality was we didn't have community managers, and that wasn't a title that existed yet. There was no social media, but we had some forums and people really excited about Tony Hawk, and I was like, throw me in there too. So I think there was kind of an early hunger to just kind of keep growing and keep learning and keep seeing what's next and seeing what's available and just kind of going into stuff. But I think when you take on that sort of perspective of, okay, well, I'm going to just do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing, it does get into that cycle where you're not really like focusing on those wins and those celebrations. So, I can remember specifically like picking our first moderators or being in a situation where, we hit a key milestone and just trying really hard to focus on how the team could come together, how we could really celebrate that together. And so, I think when it comes to smaller wins and sort of just appreciating what we've done, it sounds silly, but like I try to keep a little gratitude journal. I know a lot of people do, but I try to keep as I finish my end of the day, I start out my day with my tasks of all the things I want to do and the goals I want to set for myself. And at the end, I take a moment and I say like, I did that. This one was scary, but I did that one too. And just take that moment of just even beyond sort of celebrating, just recognizing and just saying like, hey, it is okay to be scared. It is okay to feel challenged. It's okay to try to take on new things that you didn't know you could do or even wanted to do until you're in the spot where you're actually doing it. But just trying to be in the moment and recognize when you have those moments.
Yeah, I'm actually a bad example because even to today I don't celebrate my wins enough. So when I heard this, and I just decided not to lie about it. And I think it's just a lot of people share the same journey that early in our career, we were different. We could be the minority. In my case, I was the only lady in the boardroom for many years because of my work. It's a lot of times it's related to M&A or investments. So just a boardroom of very senior people. And I just find myself always not good enough. I think that was the talk I gave it to myself. There was a lot of self-doubts. There was a lot of question in my head, like, oh, I have to catch up. Even today, I might have a small win, but it's so far away from the end line I'm seeing. So there was a constant like, oh, I need to hustle. I'm still not enough. There's a long way to go. And as a matter of fact, the more I go, the more senior people, the bigger deals I get involved in. There's no end. There's no end to it.
Yeah.
So if you don't take the time to celebrate it, to acknowledge your achievement, it can be really terrible to your mental health. So I did start, I think in terms of a recognition, I also do journaling. So, hey, what I did this year, and then so basically a lot of self-reflection. And when I've been doing this for years, and every time when I look back, not a year back, but then 3, 4, 5, 10 years back, that's when I got surprised and then realized, oh my gosh, that little girl who was so insecure back then, look at how much she did in the past 10 years. So I think that was a really good way to help me get better and then don't be so harsh on myself. And I think these ladies know that I got really sick yesterday. I went to emergency care. And this morning when I woke up, and I thought I need to do something about it after this panel because, first of all, I feel such an honor to be on the stage. This is by far the biggest stage ever given to me. So professionally made, and then amazing leaders on the stage. So I thought it's not just about celebration because it could mean, I don't know, like for some people, it might be a good, delicious meal. It might be you go out with your friends. Doesn't matter. It might mean very different things to you. But I started to think about self-promotion because, again, there are so few of us out there. So every time when we make a small win, I know a lot of ladies feel bad about it. They're like, I don't want to, is this bad talking about my small wins, big wins on LinkedIn? I don't want people to think I'm bragging. Mm-hmm. But I think we should celebrate, not just with our close network, but also with more people out there so that they know, hey, we're awesome. We put a lot of efforts into this. We really care about our career.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we should always be celebrating. And I thought this was such a good question, especially for, highlighting early in the career, for people who are early in their careers. Please remember this because that wasn't advice that I got. And I think it's incredibly important.
It's interesting too how game development has changed. It used to be you would ship a game, it would get out on store shelves, believe it or not, and then you would have this launch party that would happen, And that's not how it is anymore. I mean, it's just this constant
Releasing, yeah.
ongoing, treadmill, if you will, of having to continue to make more and more content. And before you know it, years can pass you by, and you haven't had a moment to celebrate. You have to take that time. It's critical.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And Grace, you coming and being here is not a small win. That is a big win.
Yeah.
And
For us.
Yeah, for us and everyone. And Tina, you have organizational goals of every day, like for me, every day writing down, and then at the end of the day writing down. I am very jealous of that.
I have to say, I do keep a lot of lists, and there's something so satisfying when you cross that thing off.
So good.
It's so satisfying.
So going on to our mid-game, it's a part of the career I believe I'm at, and I know a lot of other people I've heard from can reflect in this as well. The topic is there is a visual representation of self-worth that I really like. It's the water bottle example. So it's interesting because it changes depending on its environment. So for example, at the grocery store, a bottle of water could cost $1. At the airport, maybe $5. And in Las Vegas, if you take that water bottle from your hotel room, it is $20. Nothing changes. The bottle is still the same, but it is just existing in different places. So the value is viewed differently in each situation. So my question, and we'll start with Grace, thinking in terms of self-worth, where in your career did you see the value of your water bottle changing? And how did you decide to take yourself out of that environment and try a new one?
Yeah, sure. I think early in my career, I spent a lot of time honing my skills, getting more actual project experiences, both good and bad. But I think in terms of my worth, I didn't see it grow dramatically until I started growing my network in the industry. I started doing more and more networking. That was when I hit my mid-career, when I not just going out asking for things, but I could also offer so many help and then different type of project experiences. For example, I started my career in marketing and gaming, but then at one point I started doing more and more business development and then corporate development. So I started meeting more founders and then C-level executives. And I was able to offer a lot of game founding knowledge. And I think that was really great. But then when I started to have this network of folks who not just know me, but also know my reputation for being reliable and then authentic, and there are more and more people who actually would become my advocates that maybe behind my back, they would tell other folks, Grace is amazing, you should talk to them. And I thought that was the turning point, that when I saw my value, that my bottle of water grew from $1 to $10 easily. It was because there were people, amazing folks, not just my mentors, but also my advocates who would help me like behind my back with other folks in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Tina?
Yeah, I think it's very, very similar. Like coming from production, right? Like the reality is so much of what you are doing is being a servant leader and working to complete your projects and working to sort of support the team around you and, set goals and deliver those goals. And so you can kind of get in the cycle of heads down work and just working on getting stuff out the door, but you have these like intervals, even if it's now and you're doing release management, you have these intervals to kind of pop your head up and take stock of where you're at and what you want to be doing and what next set of goals you want to go after. I'm very goal oriented, I suppose. But to Grace's point, like a big component of it is finding out the people around you, the people you've worked with, the people that you've also kind of, Jen was talking the other day about, or maybe it was Tabitha, about the emotional banking, right? And putting in some capital with the people that you have relationships with and you care about, and then withdrawing that later, when you have a need. But, trying to stand up each other, I'm constantly leaving LinkedIn thank yous and things like that on people that I've worked with before. And then they're reciprocating that to me and seeing that together we're raising in value. I think that's one of the things that's really different about games is it's in a lot of other industries, it's really easy to say like, oh, well, I'm the rock star, right? But I think especially in production side of games, but in games in general, we are the value of our teams, right? Like we are the value of what we make together as cumulative, passionate people. And so I think that's one of the other things that's really valuable is as you see the group around you grow and level up, you can know your ship is leveling up with them. And that moment when you have like a really killer meeting and somebody who was a junior said something amazing and you're like, oh my goodness, they're ready for the next step. You're also realizing at those moments, hey, that might mean I am too, right? So I think there is a really special element of the way that games are that merger of entertainment and socialization and technology, and we all can't do it alone. And so I think there's just that opportunity for us to also look at the people around us and to mentor them and to buoy them. And as we do that, sort of take stock of our own value along the way.
That's great. I'm going to take this question a little more literally, because I think about sometimes I get. It doesn't happen often, but every now and then you'll see somebody just slip away. They'll, they leave their job, and you find out afterwards that they've left it because they didn't feel valued in some way.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is, a lot of times, whatever it is that bothered them, maybe it was an ill-defined role, maybe it was compensation even. These are things that could have been very fixable if they had just advocated for themselves. And so it's important that you don't stay quiet and be a bystander to your own career. You have to take action and follow through. So in my own case, I've very much wanted to work at a developer. I kind of grew up on the publishing side of the business and really wanted to make that move to a studio. And a great opportunity came up in upstate New York. And not a whole lot of people would have wanted to move from Los Angeles to the cold tundra of upstate New York. But, this was a great opportunity for me to take on a role. It was a promotion. I was able to be an executive producer over their first major release. And I thought, when I got there, I thought to myself, they're just being so kind of me. They've given me this job. I'm not worthy. But then it turned around very quickly in that they were very excited about me coming on board because of my publishing experience. Even though I had no developer side experience, the fact that they were new developers to our company. Our company had just acquired them. They wanted somebody who had the inside track at the big publisher, and so immediately I saw, I actually do bring a lot of value, even though I don't have this kind of experience. And so sometimes changing venue can be very good for you, but no matter what, before you go hunting for greener pastures, always make sure that you've done your job in advocating for yourself first.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible advice. Yeah. I really like the point of it's also not just you, Tina, to the point of you grow up in the industry and people around you sometimes that you surround yourself with as a team will all grow up in value together. So I think that's an incredible point. The next topic is a bit of a journey, but we will get there. It's my favorite question so far. So as a fan of real-time strategy games, I find myself thinking about the stages of a career like stages in a match. So at the beginning of the game, it can be very clear what you need to focus on. You form a plan, you start acting on it, you build up your base, gather resources, and then the end of the game can also be very clear. You're just really carrying out the plan that you set forth at the beginning. So when looking at a career, this could be, I want to be in X role, or I want to get myself into Y company, or even I want to sustain a career in games that makes me absolutely happy. Myself, I feel like sometimes I get lost in the middle. So I wonder how I would transition from the early game, my early game plan, and start putting my pieces in place. Do I stay the course? Do I try to make a bold move? Tina, we'll start with you. When would you say that you hit your mid-game of your career? And what steps did you take to make sure that you didn't stall, but instead kept moving yourself towards that in-game plan that you always had in mind?
Yeah, I'm a little bit different because, so I was a person who was raised by a single mom and she became disabled when I was 17. And so I had 2 jobs and was going to college at the same time. I ended up switching into games, even though it was something I was really passionate about. I didn't realize that there was a real career there. You know, this was in 1999. I didn't realize there was a real career there at the time until a friend of mine was QA at THQ and said, hey, you'll make more doing double time with this than the 2 jobs you have. And I kind of came into the games industry through that avenue, through QA and sort of working my way up into production and keep going. But for me, I had kind of a perspective of, I was never really setting a goal for myself of, I want to get to this next place. For me, it was much more about like, I need to create safety and security for myself and my mom and make sure we're okay and take care of my family, right? And so for me, it was really much more about what new skills can I gain and what new ways can I grow to provide myself that security of just knowing that I'm going to be able to provide value and I'm going to be able to, you know, no one's, you know, being on the cut of, one of the things that I did early in my career was I worked with the team that originally did a project called Disney Quest, which was VR in 1998 at 2 location-based experiences where VR was tethered to the ceiling and it was like 60-pound headsets. But I had these experiences working with these teams who had done this, you know, very early in my career, and it was something where that then now is becoming more of a reliable at-home industry or at location-based industry. So it was always something where I was like, what more can I learn? What more can I grow into than necessarily thinking of it as an RPG? Where can I level my stats so that I can become my mastery player of the kind of domain that I'm in? And so for me, it was less about, as much as I say like daily, I'm about goal setting. But I think longer term for me, it's more about who do I want to be than it is about the role I want to get to or, you know, a specific company that I want to work for. Although I will say I have been deeply fortunate to work at companies that I did desperately love and, you know, work with developers that are very much my chosen community and my chosen sort of, you know, group of friends and peers. So.
I'm from Orlando, so I very much know Disney Quest.
Yes.
Yes, and that is something I very much participated in. Grace?
I think I shared with these ladies on the stage the other day that when I first started in gaming, I thought I wanted to just continue on the marketing route. I thought my 3-year plan was to become a marketing manager, maybe a marketing director, and then all the way to VP of marketing. I was so persistent. I tried my best to gain my knowledge and project experiences. And when the first time my boss offered me, hey, Grace, do you want to start managing marketing agency relationships? Which means it's more like leaning towards BD. At that time, I remember I said no. I wanted to be in-house. I wanted to do actual projects. I wanted to be creative. I want to bring awesome, awesome campaigns to gamers. And then I loosely remember several times later, I just started managing those things without an official title because I was very against changing my route because I thought I knew what I wanted to do and I was stubborn. But fast forward to today, I'm not doing marketing anymore. However, marketing is still helping a lot with my daily work in business development and corporate development because I do know how to market my brand, my company, to our potential partners who are usually C-levels and company founders. And a lot of people would come to me and say, hey, Grace, I'm interested in what you're doing, which is game investment, game M&A. How can I have a job like yours? I actually don't know because there are not that many entry-level positions that can grow all the way to where I am today. What I did when I had a lot of self-reflection, and I thought it was just actually opening to opportunities. Even though when I was a lot younger, I was really opposed to big changes because I thought, hey, I have this path in front of me. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I think the world is evolving very quickly. For example, AI is very popular right now. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of conversations outside this room, like talking about AI applications in gaming. But I would say 5 years ago, I bet a lot of people didn't really think much about this. But that really means we have to evolve along with the industry. So that often means that you have to be, of course, working very hard, be ready when opportunities arise. And I think when those opportunities arise, when you are uncertain, go talk to your peers, go talk to your mentors. I'm really sure, like most of the times you're gonna be unsure, like, is this a risk that I should take or no? I don't know. When I make those leaps, I was terrified every single time. But I decided to embrace the uncertainty, and I'm really happy for my decisions.
That's great.
Jenny?
Yeah, so throughout my career, I always carved out time for learning. I think that's important to make space for it. So I would always go back to school or even on my own, just carve out time to make sure that I'm always learning something new. Like Grace is saying, the industry is so dynamic, it's constantly changing, and you have to keep your skills up to stay up to speed. When I was mid-career, I knew I wanted to have a greater impact, that just understanding how to produce games wasn't going to be enough. I wanted to run my own business someday, and I wanted to get the skills that I needed to do that. So I enrolled in graduate school. I went to business school while I was producing Tony Hawk, which is crazy. Please don't ever do that. I had no life at all, but it was good. It got me a few things. One, it got me a lot of outside perspective because I was going to school with people from all kinds of industries. And again, I think there's a lot that you can learn from people that aren't necessarily in gaming. It got me great connections. And then I also, got a nice credential, which I think it does go a way for some people to have that on your resume. So, those were kind of the key pieces that I felt helped me get from, that mid-level career to the next level.
That's amazing. I think there's a similarity between all of you, and that's you are all trailblazers in what you have done. And so I think it might be hard to relate sometimes, especially someone mid-career level, me looking at it. But I think what you have carved is you've carved a path for other women. That's absolutely incredible, so thank you. Looking at our leadership mentor stage of a career, I didn't want to call it end career because it's not the end of the career, but it's
Oh no.
I don't know.
You achieved like the trailblazing status. You got to a point to where you are a leader in the industry, you're a mentor. And a statistic was shared recently on LinkedIn that I thought was fascinating. Shelby Moladina this statistic was the inspiration for her short film, Resting Pitch Face. She is currently developing a web series based on this issue and aims to raise awareness for how we need to do better. The statistic is in 2023, just a little over 2%, it's like 2.2% of all VC investment money went to female founders, even though women founders generated 35% higher return on investment compared to their male counterparts. So my question is, does this statistic reflect your own personal experience? And how might you guide someone who's facing this challenge and maybe viewing it as an uphill climb? And we'll start with you, Jen.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I'm running a new startup. I obviously went and got funding. My story is a little different, I would say. I've had a long career. I've shipped a lot of games. I have co-founders also who've had illustrious careers. The team we formed is very, very senior. It's a good story for VCs. Venture capitalists, they want to know what kind of risk am I dealing with here when I'm making this investment? And I think you look at a team that is as seasoned as ours, the risk is a bit lower. But I don't want to say that it's not difficult for women out there. I do know of other women founders who struggle, and there's a cumulative effect of unconscious bias that happens throughout a woman's career, which leads to whether or not you're going to have opportunities in your career at a company or with certain venture capitalists. If you haven't gotten those tiny little opportunities of a difficult project or some way in which that you can stretch yourself, it adds up over time. So in terms of advice for people who are out there trying to get funding, I do know that there are some VCs who are trying to be more conscious about being more equitable. Try to look for those kinds of organizations that can help you. But no matter what, as you're going out for funding, just ask lots of questions. That sounds trite, I know, but they're going to tell you, hey, maybe you need to work on your pitch some more. Maybe there's some things that is missing in your market analysis of what it is that you're going to make. Maybe your team is missing some components. Just try to ask all the questions you can, and they'll be willing to tell you.
Tina?
Yeah, so our team is also VC backed, and we have a little bit of a difference. So on our cap table, which means our set of investors, we have some folks that are more focused, like the fine folks at Dreamhaven, who are more focused on having more of a differentiation of the voices that are representing gaming. And then we have more traditional kind of straight financial VC backing us as well. I definitely feel the experience of being one of those rare female founders in the room. I think that as an industry as a whole, regardless of your founding sort of journey, your career journey right now, it's kind of a time where we all know it's pretty rough out there. There's a lot of layoffs that have happened. There's a lot of, folks looking for opportunities. And the reality is when you're a hiring manager and you're looking at someone who's had 10 or 15 years of experience and someone who's got 8 but is deeply passionate and authentic and wonderful, who comes from a different background, sometimes it can be hard to say like, well, I'm for this one specific role, for this one specific place, I'm judging apples to apples. And clearly this person who's been in the industry for 32 years is the one I should go with. I think there are 2 things that we can do to combat that. We can, as job seekers, look for companies that have made a broader scale commitment to diversity, a broader scale commitment to what it means to have different voices and to, on our team, we say we don't want to have culture fit, we want to have culture expansion. So like what voices are we missing? What perspectives are we missing? So as job seekers or people at existing companies, you can look for those opportunities and we'll hopefully ask Jen a little bit about this, her experience about this later. But you look for those opportunities that have that as a stated goal, so that you can kind of know what you're stepping into and know that you'll be judged more fairly and more equitably in those organizations. I think the other thing that we can do is, as you're looking at roles, don't be afraid to be passionate. There was, I think, a time when I very first so I'm a long-term Disney fangirl, and my very first job in production was at Disney. And there was a time then they were like, don't say you're a fan because they'll think you want to like come in and make all the magic. And it's a much different organization now where people are like, no, we do want you to make the magic. But it's something where I think in most entertainment companies and most corporate companies, people are now, or even in small businesses, we're looking for people who want to be there and who have more to offer than just the stuff on their CV. So, don't be afraid to make personal connections with recruiters. Don't be afraid to make personal connections with VCs, with people like Grace who are out there doing the good work of BD and making as many connections as she can and reaching out to as many voices as she can. Just basically look at the organizations you're trying to work with and make sure that they have the same values you do for your overall career. And then also look at your own resume and the companies that you want to work for and try to, look at ways that you can draft into the kind of funnels and the kind of channels that you're looking to land at.
Great, thank you. I actually heard that quote about women only receive 3% of VC funding compared to the whole, a lot. I don't know where it came from, but I feel like that's the reality I'm also seeing. Game industry is very well male dominated. And the financial world and the VC world is even more. I don't know how many gaming venture capitalists are there in the world, maybe easily over 1,000 people, but how many female investors out there? How many female GPs out there who can pull the final trigger and say, hey, we're gonna invest $3 million, $10 million, $100 million into a game studio, be the lead investor? Not that many. This past GDC, I went to this female investor gathering in the game industry, We actually have been meeting at different conferences for the past 2 years. And when I counted how many people were in that Telegram group, it was just 30 something. And then including some ladies maybe on the platform side of venture capital. So a lot of times when we gather, we're like, we really hope there are more of us out there because we know females' needs. Because when I saw a lot of AAA pitches, no surprise, a lot of them are like AAA games. Something people didn't talk about, but like it was really, what I felt was there were a lot of games made for men. The other day, Jen mentioned that if you have a game pitch, you go to either a boardroom at a company or go to investors and say, this is a game made for women, for girls. The budget instantly shrinks. And I feel terrible because I'm originally from Asia where people would probably call themselves gamers, which also means like there's so many women, young girls will probably say, hey, I'm a gamer because this is a very normal part of the social life. And then it's just roughly 50% of gamers are women, and this is a market that very important to game developers and then financial investors. So I'm seeing more and more games targeting women, getting high budget and also top talents because of the culture and then the value these companies are showcasing to their employees. I'm really hoping that we can slowly change things here because I do feel like I don't know what AAA games mean for girls, but I think girls or women in general. But I do feel like we have the buying power. We're spending a lot, not just in PC, but also in mobile. But I don't know why there are not enough money allocated to female-founded companies or projects made for women or minorities. Now I'm thinking about a book called Invisible Women, which discusses about how women's needs are not seen enough, and even a lot of design work or lab tests. When those things were done, most of the people participating in those tests were just men. So ended up having results like, a lot of medication that the dosage was not accurate for women because they tested it mostly on men. And then I even remember one time, okay, so a little kind of derail a little bit, but I just remember when I did scuba diving and then I tried to rent the wetsuit, I couldn't find anything for me because it had no curves. And I thought, are all the wetsuits like that, made for men? But back to our industry, I'm just feeling like, especially in the West, because I came from the East, so I can easily see the difference that a lot of young girls growing up, they don't feel like they fit in the gaming community, because sometimes it can be a little toxic. They don't want to identify as a gamer. They say, I play games, but I'm not a gamer. So growing up, they are not considering this as a career. And then not that many female developers out there thinking, hey, this is a theme, this is a fantasy, I can just make a game and then deliver those fantasies for gamers. So I feel like this is a bad cycle from like very early on. Like people don't want to be identified as a gamer and then they don't want to enter the career. And then when you get into a big corporation, you don't see that many people like you. And then you end up having imposter syndrome, feeling not good enough because you're just simply different.
So all of you are very important to the future. That's the lesson here. What you're saying is so true. We have a big opportunity because there's an underserved audience just waiting for more content. I think about, I have twins, a boy and a girl, and they grew up playing Roblox. And now my son has Fortnite that he can go to and play. But my daughter, I think she kind of meanders around and plays a bunch of different things, but she doesn't have like that game that has really sucked her in, that has that kind of production value, that kind of audience gathering that she can be a part of. And I think that's something that's missing. And part of it is we need creators that are willing to do that and who are willing to be brave and take the chance to do it.
Yeah.
I agree. I think I was sharing the other day at lunch that, I really enjoy competitive games, and you were sharing that there's just not a lot of competitive games that are aimed towards women. And, a lot of that deals with toxicity and creating a safe environment. I stay mostly out of the comments in the chat, and off comms. And so but our other counterparts don't have to do that and don't have, these type of things that they don't get to do to enhance their gameplay experience. So no, I think it's incredibly important. Like I said, you all are here. I would love for us to continue pushing the industry forward. And we've done quite a bit, but there's a lot to go. My last question from me is going to be, what advice would you like to share with other women in the industry who are currently seeking mentorship and support from leaders and mentors like yourselves? And we'll start with Grace.
Okay, I think when I first started in my career, I participated in a lot of mentorship programs as mentees. And now I look back, I feel like they were more like arranged marriages, which means you get into it, you don't get to pick. Usually the organizer will arrange it for you, and you don't know what you get. And then in my own career, I also, many years ago, I thought I needed to go to someone and say, can you be my mentor? It was strange. But now I think what really works for me is, my analogy is you should treat mentorship as dating. That you don't go to someone just because they have this halo and you go to that person and say, can you be my mentor? Because I think that feeling should be mutual, that not only do you want to learn some experience from this person, they also have the right, style. Because sometimes I could tell, there are mentees who came to me, I offer my advice, could be the same advice given to a group of 3 different people. I could tell, feedback was different. Some people might be less, interested in continue the mentorship program with me. So I do feel like it's less important about, do you have a long-term official mentorship relationship? Maybe you can just find mentors among your peers, your managers, people several levels above you. That's all fine. People within your industry, people outside your industry, because you can get equally important feedback. But in short, I feel like for mentorship, what really works for me is that you should treat this as a relationship, that you're investing in it. Back to what we talked about earlier, social banking, that as mentees, make some efforts, reach out. Because a lot of feedback, when I discuss with other mentors, some people are they're very busy. They want to offer suggestions, but they don't want to feel like, they're a teacher forcing things onto mentees. You have to go to them and then be welcoming those, receiving those information. There are a lot of people actually willing to share, but they're not sure if people are ready to take it. And then if you find a person that, after one conversation, that person actually welcomes you to go back and say, hey, come back to me, let's grab another coffee next month. Show some efforts, don't be late. Whatever you discussed previously, take notes. Don't let that person feel like, they wasted energy on you. You don't have to do it, but what I did was also I would bring some small gifts, maybe tea, maybe candies, show a little appreciation. It doesn't have to be expensive gifts, but just, for example, another example, I have this mentee, she's originally from Taiwan. She recently went to Japan and then came back, brought me a box of cookies. I'm like, you don't have to do it. You don't have a job. Her parents are supporting her through grad school. I felt really bad, but then how did I feel? I felt she really cared about this relationship. It's not just about the money, but it made me wanted to invest more in that relationship and then share more heart-to-heart experience with her.
It's amazing.
But again, it's not about money. It's not about money.
Gifts always.
I'll take cookies.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I want people to walk away with in general is just just to ask, just to try, just to take a shot on goal. I think that, even when we talked about the VC side a little bit ago, I think part of the reason there is a lower amount of female founders who get invested in is there's a lower amount of female founders who pitch, whether that is because of where they are in their career or whether that is because of imposter syndrome, whether it's because of not knowing how to take the first steps into not even knowing like what an accelerator program is, or trying to understand like all of these banking terms that you've never had to explore before. And I think in my experience, I think there are a couple of key things that have been important with mentors. One is to watch people. I had the great fortune very early of watching people like Jen when she would come into a very boisterous, very male-dominated office. Our company at that time had 111 people, and I think 9 of them were women. So it was a very, very stark contrast. And just, to be able to watch how she handled a room, how she owned a room, how she knew everybody's answers, how she was able to kind of be present and lock in on giving somebody feedback in that moment. One of the things I always appreciated about Jen really early is if you especially came with an agenda item, Jen loves a good agenda. If you were like, hey, I would love to do a resume review, or I would love to have, I have this specific question. I remember asking about these marketing things, like how does this work or whatever. And, she would always be willing to stop and have a hallway conversation. So the first thing I would say is look at the people directly around you, look for the people that are killing it and ask them questions and build those relationships. But I also have, weird experiences myself where because there are fewer, underrepresented groups out there that you can seek feedback from, there have certainly been times where I've had a specific question. So I'll call out Chelsea Blasco, who's the CEO of Iron Galaxy, where I had a very specific question. I didn't know her. I don't want to say anyone should, but I was like, I know she knows the answer to this question. And so I sent her a really brief message and said, hey, I know you know the answer to this, and I'm really struggling to find it. Would you be willing to take just a couple minutes out of your time to help me answer this one particular question? And that one particular question became something that evolved over months and time, and I'm very fortunate to have her someone that I can call more frequently as well. But in all of this, don't be afraid of a challenge. Don't be afraid to say hello. The gaming industry, like I said, is we are a community of people who all choose to be here. We could all have our jobs likely in other industries, but we all want to be here and we want to share this experience. Just be observational about who's around you, and don't be afraid to ask.
This is such great advice. I'm not sure what more I can add, but I'll say that. Definitely look for mentors in unlikely places. I would say some of the best mentorship that I've gotten really has been from some of my peers. And like Grace was saying, the relationship is important. Yes, you want to get something out of it. You want to learn something, but don't get so focused on the transactional nature of it. Like, get more focused on how do I build a relationship with this person? Because you never know. 10 years from now, that person might be your boss. That person might be a person of influence that can help you with your career. So really spend the time getting to know them as a human being, and be vulnerable too. I think, sometimes I'll get a mentee who just wants to show me all the good things they've done. And while that's wonderful, how can I help you if I don't know where you're having real challenges? And so it's okay to come to your mentor with things that you're really struggling with. Open up about where you've had some real challenges, because they're there to help you, and they want to. And the thing that you want to have happen with this relationship is it goes from a mentor-mentee relationship into something more, which is more them advocating for your career and being able to speak for you and say, no, I know this person, I've seen some challenges that they've worked through, and that they're able to succeed because they're really willing to learn and grow.
Incredible advice. And thank you all so much for bestowing your wisdom and for coming here and participating in the panel today. We only have a couple minutes left. I really wanted you all to ask each other questions. Was there a question that, I think we have time. Tina, did you have a question for Jen?
Yeah, so, Jen, as the founder of a new studio, like I said, it's really important to find out the values of those studios that you're applying for or that you're working for, and making sure that your goals are aligned. So I wanted to talk to you about sort of your value setting journey and how things work for you at Magic Soup.
Yeah. Well, we spent a lot of time with the core team thinking about our values and what was really important to us. We're a fully remote team, and I would say one of the most important values for us is that we have an environment where you can feel safe to be brave and vulnerable. Like, we don't have time for things to fester. We don't have, I can't see you. I don't see you in the kitchen, rubbing your head and going, something's wrong. And to be able to like come out and say, resolve those problems quickly. So it starts right at the hiring process. We have a pretty long interview process. Half of it is skill, but half of it is all about our values and reinforcing those values. So there's a lot of questions around how you work as a team member, how you resolve conflict. And there's people who who do very well on the skill side, but if they don't succeed on the values interviews, they don't pass for us. But then it's continually reinforced through our daily, weekly activities. I pretty much every other week or so, I put out a survey, and it's very simple. It's just emoji faces. How are you feeling? Are you happy? Are you angry, frustrated, confused? And tell me what it is that that you need some help on. And I have one-on-ones with everyone in the company, but I actually get a lot of detail and value out of those surveys. And I think by acting quickly on anything that might be a challenge for somebody, I think that's me building trust with the employees. And then, they can see over time that we really mean what we say.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're out of time, but we're actually going to be, we're going to be outside. So if anyone has any questions or wants to come and say hi, we'll be right there in the hall. Thank you all so much for coming. You all are incredible. Thank you all to our panel.
Thank you.